A man in his early 30s walked into my office, hair tousled, eyes darting, plaid shirt, slacks. He looked around in confusion and sat down in the chair by my desk. "I'm afraid of dripping water," he said, shooting a frightened glance at the sink by the wall. It wasn't dripping. "All right," I answered calmly. "Why are you afraid of it?" "Because those sounds attract them," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder. "Whom do you mean?" "I'll tell you, and you'll understand," he said, barely above a whisper. I sat and listened. He began. "It started one night. I woke up alone in my apartment and heard water dripping somewhere. Drip, drip, drip." He paused a second with each word. I kept a neutral face and let him continue. "I got up, went into the hall, and realized the sound was coming from the kitchen. The faucet was dripping. I tightened it and went back to bed. But before I could fall asleep, I heard those irritating drops again." He fell silent for a moment and looked at the sink in my office with fear. I was about to get up and go back when I got a text from my friend who lives in the building across the street. He wrote, "If you're trying to scare me, you'll need something better." I didn't get it and texted back, "What are you even talking about?" He replied, "Quit standing at your kitchen window and staring at me. It's not scary. It's dumb." So, I got up, went to my bedroom window and flashed my phone light toward him. He texted, "Dude, I can see your light, but someone's in your kitchen," and he just stepped away from the window. At that moment, I thought I heard something from the kitchen, but I couldn't make out what. The dripping wouldn't let me listen properly. It kept pulling my attention. I told my friend that if I didn't reply within 5 minutes, he should call the police. He agreed, and I headed for the kitchen. When I got there, I didn't find anyone. But neither the kitchen nor the bathroom was dripping, and yet the sound kept going. From somewhere. He went quiet and stared at me. After a minute, I asked, "So, where did you find the source?" "That's just it. I didn't find it." He glanced at the sink again. It seemed like it was coming from the kitchen. So, I started checking everything. And then the power went out. He fell silent again, staring at a single spot. A couple of seconds later, he suddenly jumped to his feet and shouted, "Turn off the faucet!" He scraped his chair back and pressed himself against the wall, eyes fixed on the sink. "Turn the damn faucet off!" I hadn't even noticed the faint dripping. Probably wouldn't have if he hadn't reacted like that. "Don't worry, I'll shut it," I said evenly, and walked to the sink. I tightened the handle. The dripping stopped, and the man calmed down, though he still watched the sink with obvious dread. I sat back down and told him, "It's all right. There's nothing to be afraid of. If you think about it, it's just tiny drops of water falling. That's all." "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "Maybe it is water, but the sound, it draws them in, and they come. How long have you noticed they're attracted to it? You've heard drips all your life. Only recently." He looked around, then up at the ceiling. "It never used to happen." "How would you describe these things that come when they hear it? What do they look like?" "I can't," he said, fear flaring in his eyes as his fingers started to fidget. "They don't have a fixed appearance." He was terrified, but tried for a weak smile. "But I promise you, if they're nearby, you'll know." "Do you encounter them often?" I asked, watching his foot jitter side to side. "Too often. I'll tell you about one time." He closed his eyes, as if sifting through what had happened to him, or what had happened in his head. After about a minute, he exhaled and began. "That night I stayed over at a friend's place. After the game ended, he went to the other room and took the couch, told me to use the bed. I couldn't sleep. Tossed and turned, and then drip, Drip. Drip. Again. Not from the bathroom or the kitchen. From the room where my friend was. He took a deep breath. I remembered that this was a bad sign. I was scared, but I went to check. I reached for the doorknob when a voice behind me said, "Hey, what are you doing?" It was my friend's voice, but off. I turned and saw his silhouette in the dark. He stood in the hallway with his head slightly tilted, just standing there, staring at me. "Something's dripping in there," I said. "We should check." Then I realized I hadn't heard him get up. I hadn't seen him leave his room. "Don't worry, it's from the ceiling," he said. The cadence was strange, unnatural, like isolated words, not a sentence. "Then we need to tell the upstairs neighbors they're flooding us," I said, really starting to panic. He kept standing there, motionless, and said, "Don't. They won't hear you anymore." And then he lunged. "No. Wait." He broke off, raised a finger. "I'd better tell you about another time I met them. That'll be clearer." I sighed but didn't push him to finish every last one of his wild tales. "All right," I said. "Go ahead." "So, I was at home, watching TV. There was this show on. So good. I loved it." He launched into detailed commentary about the program. It went on for more than 10 minutes, and eventually, I zoned out, lost in my own thoughts. I know I shouldn't have, but I was so worn down by him that I didn't notice right away that I wasn't listening. When I caught myself and refocused on my patient, I noticed the sink was dripping. He kept talking, oblivious to the sound. I decided to get up and turn it off before he noticed and got scared again. I was watching the sink and about to stand when his words finally registered. And that sound was mesmerizing. He was saying softly. I could listen to it forever. It's so calming, so relaxing. I looked at him. He was staring at the sink without blinking, eyes bulging, a wide grin stretching across his face. The nervous tics were gone. He sat perfectly still, gazing at the faucet, smiling from ear to ear. "It's beautiful," he whispered, delighted. That was a bad sign. I stood and headed for the sink. As I walked, I kept my eyes on him. He didn't blink once. Up close, the faucet wasn't dripping, but the dripping sounded right beside me. Now I felt it too. The wrongness. I looked around for anything that could be making the sound and found nothing. He kept staring at the sink, and then his gaze snapped to me. He looked straight into my eyes with a kind of madness, his grin splitting his face. "Do you like the sound?" he asked, then let out a nervous little laugh. "Where is it coming from?" I asked, trying to stay composed, reminding myself I was dealing with a disturbed patient. Nothing more. "You really want to know?" His joy spiked in his voice. I stood by the sink, unsure what to say. A heavy fear settled over me, locking up my body. He just sat there, staring at me with his mouth slightly open, smiling. "Don't be too scared," he chuckled softly. "When we come, the electricity tends to glitch." I didn't think a patient could actually scare me, but he did. Something rustled off to the side. I looked. Nothing. The lights began to flicker. I looked back at him, and his awful, smiling face burned into my vision against the darkness flooding the office. The lights went out completely. Feeling my way along the wall toward the door, I heard sounds that nearly stopped my heart. Footsteps at the far end of the office, but in the span of a second, there were around 10 of them. Maybe more. Instinct took over. I sprinted for the exit. The lights stuttered back in pulses, and in that strobing glare, I saw him standing in the center of the room, head tilted, eyes wide, smiling so hard it looked painful. At the edge of my vision, something black flickered past, making those too fast, skittering steps. I burst into the hallway. Everything was normal out there. Steady lights, 3 patients, 2 nurses, all staring at me. "Hey," someone called. Down the hall, I saw another doctor, Victor. He was in his 60s, hair completely silver, white coat. He saw how soken at you mechor me. Inside, the patient, was all I managed. That patient? Victor asked, pointing to a man sitting on the bench in the corridor. It was the same guy I'd been talking to in my office minutes earlier. But I couldn't believe it. Come on, Victor said. I'll explain. He led me down the hallway. Dr. Hale, can I step away for a minute? One of the nurses called. Absolutely not, he snapped. You know the rules. He has to be escorted by at least 2 staff at all times. And why on earth did you leave Dr. Michael Peters alone with him? Do you have any idea how that could have ended? Sir, we're short-staffed right now. A lot of people are out sick, she stammered. And he was sitting with us in the hall while Dr. Peters was in his office, so that's not an excuse, Victor barked. Don't let it happen again. We went into his office. He poured me a mug of tea and asked, with the faintest hint of a smile, So, did he spook you? What the hell is he? Our special patient, Victor said, stirring his tea before taking a sip. No one knows where he came from, or what his real name is. Feels like he just appeared one day. Everyone here knows what he can do. How shall I put it? Make other people feel his fears. You're new. You didn't know, and those nurses left you alone with him. Brilliant. Good thing you got out when you did. He's already driven more than one person over the edge. You seem mostly okay. Yes? Mostly, I said, still a little shell-shocked. Every time, it's a new fear. And every time, he wants other people to share it with him. Try not to walk this hospital alone, and avoid that guy. Don't start a conversation. You won't even notice how you end up inside his nightmares. And not everyone gets back out. Victor checked the clock, then stood. All right, time to head home. Our shift's over. I changed, grabbed my things, and left for the night. At the exit, I heard it, the drip of water. I spun around, staring at the source in horror. A janitor wringing out a mop glanced at me and kept cleaning. Looked like I'd picked up a new phobia. Now, I'm afraid of dripping water, too.